The chamber of the United Earth Council was silent, except for the faint hum of the large holographic display in the center of the room. It was late in the evening, but no one seemed tired. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the glowing image of the galaxy above the table. Red markers spread like drops of blood across the stars. Showing the alien fleets that were moving closer to human space, Commander Lucas Grant stood with his arms crossed, staring at the hologram. He was a tall man with short dark hair and tired eyes. He had seen many battles, but this was different. He knew that if the Council did not act now, Earth's colonies would be in danger. Across the table, Admiral Karen Holt was busy tapping her datapad. She was studying the battle predictions, cold numbers that told grim stories. The data was clear. If the aliens kept advancing, it would be only a matter of weeks before they reached human worlds. The council members sat in a wide circle around the table. Most of them were leaders from Earth, but a few were governors from the colonies. Their faces showed worry, frustration, and fear. They had already tried talking to the alien coalition before, but it had not worked. The coalition was a group of 7 alien worlds that had joined together for trade and defense. Over time, they had grown more aggressive, taking small human outposts and claiming they were theirs by right. Earth had sent warnings, but the aliens had ignored them. "We have no choice," Admiral Holt said at last, her voice firm. "We must send the final ultimatum. If they do not stop, we will respond with force." The room was still for a moment, as if everyone was holding their breath. Lucas looked around the table and saw hesitation in some faces. Force meant war, and war in space was brutal and costly. But there was no other path. If Earth did nothing, the aliens would see it as weakness. The Council voted. The decision was made in minutes. The ultimatum would be sent clear, direct, and final. The message was simple. The alien fleets must stop all attacks and withdraw from human space, or Earth would take action. The message was transmitted on every known coalition frequency, both in their language and in the trade language used across the galaxy. After the vote, the meeting broke into smaller discussions. Lucas stood by the wide window that looked out at the city below. It was night, and the lights of New Geneva glowed like a field of stars. He wondered if those lights would still shine in a year. Karen walked over and stood beside him. "Think they'll listen?" she asked quietly. "No," Lucas said, without looking away from the view. "They think we're bluffing. They think humanity is too young, too weak to fight them." Karen's mouth tightened. She had been in enough battles to know that underestimating humans was a mistake. "Then they'll learn," she said. One way or another, far away, in a star system controlled by the coalition, the message arrived. It was delivered to the high citadel of Chancellor Voreth, leader of the Coalition Council. The Chancellor listened to the words in silence, his scaled hands resting on the arms of his throne. Around him, alien advisors and warlords watched, waiting for his reaction. When the message ended, Voreth let out a low, dismissive growl. Think they can threaten us," he said. "They are wrong." One of the warlords, a tall insect-like creature named Zareen, stepped forward. "Perhaps we should at least consider their offer," she said. "Human fleets are growing stronger each year. They have weapons our scouts do not fully understand." Voreth turned his head sharply. "They are nothing compared to the coalition," he replied. "We have more ships, more soldiers, and more experience. We will not bow to them." His voice echoed in the chamber, and several warlords nodded in agreement. The decision was made. They would not answer the ultimatum. They would continue their advance. Back on Earth, the Council received no reply. Days passed, and the alien fleets kept moving forward. Each report from the frontier told the same story. Enemy ships sighted, human patrols forced to retreat, small outposts destroyed or taken over. News feeds on Earth began showing images of burning colonies and fleeing civilians. The public grew restless, demanding action. Lucas spent those days in constant meetings with military commanders, preparing for the worst. Karen oversaw fleet readiness reports, making sure every ship was fueled, armed, and ready to deploy at a moment's notice. They both knew that if the coalition kept ignoring Earth's warnings, there would be only one outcome: war, and somewhere. Deep in his mind, Lucas felt a cold certainty. The aliens would not stop. They would push until humanity was forced to push back, and when that happened, there would be no turning back. The alien coalition was spread across many star systems, each world different from the next. But their leaders met in one place, the Grand Citadel on the world of Verith. The Citadel was a towering structure of black stone and silver metal, built high on the cliffs above an endless sea. From its highest windows, one could see the glowing arcs of ships rising into the sky. Chancellor Vorith sat at the center of the council chamber, surrounded by 12 seats for the other leaders. His scales were dark blue, his eyes narrow and sharp. In front of him floated the message from Earth, replaying in the common galactic tongue. The voice of the human messenger was calm but firm. The ultimatum was clear: stop the attacks or face war. When the message ended, silence filled the chamber. The only sound was the soft hum of the floating lights above. Then a deep voice broke the stillness. General Korth, a broad-shouldered reptilian warrior, leaned forward in his seat. "They dare to speak to us like this," he said. "These humans think they can tell the coalition what to do." A few of the leaders chuckled softly, but not everyone agreed. Zirine, the tall insectoid warlord, raised one of her thin arms. "General, I have fought humans before," she said. "They are not weak. Their ships are fast, and their weapons can destroy even our strongest armor. If they have gathered a large fleet, it could be dangerous." Korth let out a low growl. "They have fewer ships than we do. They are children compared to us. We have ruled the stars for centuries." Vorith listened without speaking, his gaze moving from one leader to the next. Finally, he spoke. "We will not change our plans because of a threat. Earth is new to the stars. They believe they can frighten us with words, but they have much to learn. If they send their fleets, we will crush them and send back the wreckage as a warning." Some of the leaders banged their hands on the table in agreement. Others stayed quiet, their eyes thoughtful. They had heard stories from soldiers who had faced humans before, stories of clever tactics and sudden victories. But in the coalition, showing fear was a sign of weakness, and weakness was not tolerated. Far from the Citadel, in the deep hangars of the coalition's war factories, workers and drones moved quickly between massive ships under construction. New weapons were being tested, faster engines fitted, and old warships upgraded with stronger shields. The coalition was preparing for expansion, and nothing, not even Earth, would stop them. In a quiet corner of the Citadel, Zirine met privately with her second in command, a smaller insectoid named Verith. "They are making a mistake," Zirine said. "Humans fight differently. They will not attack in the way the others expect. If they are forced into war, they will come with everything they have." Verith tilted his head. "Then why not speak up more strongly in the council?" "Because," she replied, "the others will not listen until it is too late. They will only believe when the humans strike them directly." Back on Earth, the lack of any reply from the coalition made the tension worse. Each day, military reports grew darker. Alien patrols were entering human-controlled space without fear, marking new territories and attacking small stations. One colony, Haven Reach, sent a desperate call for help after an enemy force surrounded it. By the time human ships arrived, the colony was gone, its people missing. News of Haven Reach spread quickly across the human worlds. Crowds gathered in the streets, demanding that the government take action. President Laura Grant addressed the public, her voice steady but filled with anger. "We gave them a chance for peace," she said. "They have refused. We will defend our people." Commander Lucas Grant watched the speech from the command center. He knew the president's words meant that military action was now certain. Admiral Karen Holt was already in meetings with fleet commanders, organizing the forces that would be sent. Lucas joined her later, and together they reviewed the intelligence reports. "They think we are afraid to fight," Karen said, scrolling through the latest enemy fleet positions. "They will not expect us to strike first." Lucas nodded. "If we are going to stop them, we need to hit them hard and fast. No half measures." Meanwhile, deep in coalition space, Vorith stood in his private observatory, watching the stars. He thought of the humans, not with fear, but with curiosity. He had underestimated other species before, but never enough to lose. This time, he felt the same confidence. The coalition had never been defeated, and he did not believe it could be now. Still, far out on the edge of the galaxy, where human scouts moved quietly through the dark, small signals were already being sent. The first steps of the coming war had begun, though neither side yet knew just how far it would go. Asterisk. The first attacks began quietly. At first, they seemed like small raids, the kind of border trouble that happened every few years. But soon, the reports became too frequent to ignore. Alien ships were striking human stations along the edge of known space, hitting supply depots and listening posts before vanishing into the darkness in the Perseus sector. Lieutenant Brandon Cole commanded a small patrol squadron of 3 corvettes. He was young, but had already faced pirates and smugglers during his time in the fleet. Now, his orders were to watch for coalition activity and report back. The patrol was routine at first: empty space, quiet sensors, and long hours staring at the stars. On the 4th day, the alarms sounded. Brandon looked up from his console as the sensor officer spoke quickly. "Multiple contacts, sir. Bearing 031. They're moving fast." Brandon's eyes narrowed. "How many?" "At least 5 ships, possibly more. Configuration matches coalition designs." Brandon gave the order to bring the squadron into formation. The human ships were smaller than the enemy vessels, but faster. He knew they could not win in a full fight, but he also knew he had to protect the station nearby. The battle began at long range. Bright flashes of plasma and railgun fire crossing the void. The human ships darted in and out, striking quickly before pulling away. They managed to damage 1 coalition frigate, forcing it to retreat. But the rest of the enemy fleet pressed on, heading straight for the station. Brandon ordered his squadron to fall back, covering the station's evacuation ships as they fled towards safer space. Hours later, Brandon's report reached Earth. It was one of many. Across the frontier, similar stories were unfolding. Alien raids were growing bolder. Outposts were being abandoned. Some stations had gone silent entirely. News feeds across Earth and the colonies began to show the images. A mining station left. In ruins, its docking ring twisted and broken. A convoy of refugee ships arriving at a colony world, their hulls scorched from near misses. Families stepping onto the docks with nothing but small bags, their faces showing both relief and sorrow. Public anger grew. People began demanding that the government stop waiting and strike back. In the capital, the United Earth Council met again to decide their next step. The decision was made to send a large fleet, not just for defense, but to push back. President Laura Grant addressed the gathered reporters. "We will not stand by while our people are attacked," she said. "We are mobilizing the 9th Expeditionary Fleet. It will have one mission: to ensure the safety of our space and our citizens." In the great shipyards on the moon, the 9th Fleet began to assemble. Massive carriers, cruisers, and destroyers floated in the construction bays. Engineers worked day and night, loading ammunition, fitting armor, and testing systems. Among the crews, there was a quiet understanding many of them might not return. Admiral Karen Holt walked the length of the flagship's main deck. The ship was named Horizon, and it was the most advanced vessel humanity had ever built. Its railguns could fire hypervelocity slugs capable of tearing through any known armor. Its stealth systems could hide it from most sensors. Karen paused. At the bridge, looking out over the stars. She had led many missions before, but this one felt different. The stakes were higher. The enemy was stronger. Commander Lucas Grant joined her, holding a datapad with the latest intelligence. "The coalition is still advancing," he said. "If we wait too long, they'll be too close to our core worlds." Karen nodded. "Then we don't wait. We move as soon as the last ships are ready." Meanwhile, in the Perseus sector, Brandon Cole and his squadron continued their patrols. He had heard about the Ninth Fleet's mobilization, and it gave him some hope. But he also knew that until the big ships arrived, small units like his would be the only defense the frontier had. He kept his ships moving, never staying in one place too long, striking quickly when he could, and avoiding traps when the odds were too great. One night, while the squadron drifted in the shadow of a dead moon, Brandon sat in the quiet of his cabin. He thought about the civilians he had helped escape, about the station they had lost, and about the enemy ships still out there. He didn't know what the Ninth Fleet would face when it arrived. But he knew one thing for certain. The war had already begun. The Ninth Fleet was unlike anything humanity had ever sent into space before. It was made up of carriers, cruisers, destroyers, and support ships, all armed with the newest weapons Earth had developed. From the great shipyards on the moon, the fleet stretched out like a small city of metal and light. Each ship humming with power, Admiral Karen Holt stood on the main observation deck of the flagship Horizon. The huge windows gave her a clear view of the rest of the fleet. Tug ships moved between the larger vessels, carrying supplies and spare parts. Fighter squadrons performed formation drills near the carriers, their engines leaving blue trails against the black of space. Karen had been in the fleet for over 20 years, but she had never commanded a force this large. Her orders were simple, but heavy with responsibility. Take the fleet into coalition space and end the threat to human worlds. She knew it would not be easy. The coalition had more ships, more soldiers, and more experience. But she also knew that humanity had something the coalition did not: determination. Born from defending their homes, on the Horizon's bridge, Captain Ryan Pierce reviewed the readiness reports. Ryan was younger than Karen, but had built a reputation for quick thinking in battle. He walked from one station to another, checking the status of weapons, shields, and navigation. "Engineering is reporting all systems green," one officer told him. "Good," Ryan replied. "Make sure it stays that way." In the docking bays, crew members worked quickly to load the last supplies: food, medical equipment, ammunition, and spare parts were stacked in neat rows, ready to be moved to their storage areas. Mechanics checked the fighters one last time, tightening bolts and replacing damaged panels. Pilots went through final briefings, reviewing tactics and emergency procedures. Commander Lucas Grant arrived on the Horizon by shuttle. He had been working with the intelligence division, gathering as much information as possible about coalition movements. As soon as he stepped onto the bridge, Karen looked up. "Any news?" she asked. Lucas handed her a datapad. "The coalition is reinforcing their border fleets. They've moved several heavy cruisers into the Verith sector. If we want to catch them off guard, we'll need to move quickly." Karen studied the report. "Then we won't waste time. As soon as the last ship is ready, we depart." When the final preparations were complete, the order was given. Across the fleet, engines came to life, glowing bright as they built up power. The ships began to move in perfect formation, leaving the moon behind. From Earth's surface, people looked up at the night sky and saw the streaks of light as the fleet entered hyperspace. They watched with pride and fear, knowing that many of those ships might never return. Inside the horizon, the crew settled into their long journey. Karen spent most of her time in strategy meetings, going over possible battle scenarios. Ryan drilled the crew on emergency procedures, making sure everyone knew what to do if the ship was hit. Lucas kept working with the intelligence team, scanning for any sign that the coalition knew the fleet was coming. In the crew quarters, conversations were quieter than usual. Some people wrote messages to their families. Others kept busy with games or reading to distract themselves from what lay ahead. One young pilot, Ensign Kyle Reed, sat with his squadron in the mess hall. "My father used to say that humans don't start fights, but we sure know how to end them," Kyle said. A few people laughed softly. But the truth in his words made them fall silent again. As the fleet traveled deeper into space, the stars around them began to change. They passed through systems with dying suns, empty worlds, and strange debris. Fields left from ancient battles. Sensors picked up faint signals now and then, but nothing strong enough to suggest an enemy presence. Late on the fifth day, the horizon sensors detected something unusual: a cluster of wrecked ships drifting in deep space. Some were human designs, others clearly coalition. Karen ordered the fleet to slow and approach carefully. As they drew closer, the damage became clear. The ships had been torn apart, their hulls blackened by fire. There were no signs of life. Lucas studied the scene from the bridge. "This wasn't a normal battle," he said. "Look at the hull damage, scattered and uneven. Something else happened here." Karen's eyes narrowed. "Mark the coordinates and keep moving. We can't get delayed." The fleet continued on its course toward coalition territory, but the sight of the wrecks stayed in everyone's minds. Whatever had happened there, it was a reminder that the unknown dangers of deep space could be just as deadly as any enemy fleet. Asterisk. The Ninth Fleet moved deeper into coalition territory. The further they traveled, the less familiar the stars became. Navigation charts showed fewer human waypoints and more empty stretches of space. Even the light from distant suns felt colder. Here, as if they had crossed into a different part of the galaxy, on the horizon's bridge, Admiral Karen Holt stood beside Captain Ryan Pierce, watching the long-range scans. Lieutenant Dana Ward worked at the sensor console, her eyes moving quickly across the glowing display. "I'm picking up faint signals ahead," she said. "Very weak, but they could be distress calls." Karen thought for a moment. "Can we identify the source?" "Not clearly," Dana replied. "The signals are scattered and broken. It's possible they've been bouncing through debris fields." Lucas Grant stepped forward. "It could be survivors from earlier battles. Or it could be a trap." Karen gave the order to log the signal coordinates but continue forward. "We have to stay on course," she said. "If we stop now, we lose the advantage of surprise." Hours later, the fleet passed through the remains of what looked like another battlefield. Wreckage drifted silently, spinning slowly in the dark. Some of the debris was fresh, metal edges still bright where the hulls had been torn apart. No life signs appeared on the scans. The crew spoke in hushed voices. Even the most experienced officers felt uneasy. It was not the enemy they feared in this moment, but the unknown whatever could destroy both human and coalition ships and leave no survivors. By the seventh day of travel, the stars ahead began to shift in strange ways. From the observation deck, it looked as though the distant lights were bending and stretching. Navigation computers reported slight gravitational fluctuations, but no planet or black hole nearby that could explain them. It's like the space itself is moving. Dana said quietly, adjusting her instruments. I've never seen readings like this. Karen ordered the fleet to slow. Stay alert, she told the bridge crew. I want all weapons and shields ready. The horizon led the fleet into the distorted region. The view outside the windows was unsettling. Stars rippled, as if they were reflections on water. Inside the ship, some crew members felt a low vibration in the floor, though the engines were steady. Then, without warning, the distortion faded, and normal space returned. The scans immediately lit up, with multiple contacts ahead. Reading? Enemy ships, Dana announced. A lot of them. It's too many to count from this range. Lucas moved closer to her console. Can they see us yet? Unclear, she said. If they're using standard coalition sensors, our stealth systems should keep us hidden for now. Karen exchanged a glance with Ryan. We hold position until we know what we're dealing with. The contacts on the scanner began to separate into distinct shapes. It was a massive coalition fleet spread across the system ahead. Carrier groups, cruisers, and escorts filled the space around a large central station, which appeared to be a forward operating base. Ryan studied the display. They're ready for something. Look at that formation, it's defensive. They know we're coming, or they expect someone to. Karen's voice was calm, but firm. Then we will meet them on our terms. Signal the fleet to prepare for combat. Readiness, but hold fire until my order. In the crew quarters, word spread quickly. Pilots strapped into their fighters, running final checks. Marines in the troop bays secured their armor and weapons. Engineers moved between stations, monitoring reactor output and shield generators. Dana continued to watch the sensors. Admiral, I'm detecting unusual power spikes from the enemy station. Could be weapon charging, or possibly communications to other fleets. Lucas frowned. If they're calling for reinforcements, we may not have much time before more ships arrive. Karen gave the order for the fleet to advance slowly. The Ninth Fleet moved like a single organism, ships adjusting their positions with precise coordination. Every crew member knew the next hours could decide the fate of the mission. Outside, the enemy fleet remained in position, their ships glowing faintly under the light of the nearby star. The silence before battle stretched on, broken only by the quiet hum of systems inside the horizon. For now, both sides waited, each trying to read the other's intentions. The vast darkness of space seemed calm. But every captain in the human fleet knew it was the silence before the storm. Commander Lucas Grant stood on the bridge of the battleship Orion's Blade, staring at the tactical screen. The alien fleet was just hours away from contact. Dozens of red markers moved slowly toward the human defense line. They were bigger in number. But the humans had spent weeks preparing for this moment. Admiral Karen Holt's voice came over the comm channel. All ships, hold your positions. We will let them come to us. Remember the plan. No one fires until I give the order. Her tone was calm, but everyone could hear the weight behind her words. Across the fleet, thousands of human crew members moved quickly through narrow corridors. Engineers checked power systems. Loading crews made sure missile bays were ready. And gunners sat with their hands near the firing controls. Some tried to stay busy to keep their minds off the fear that was starting to grow. They all knew many of them might not see home again. Far ahead, the alien fleet moved like a wall of steel and light. The coalition ships were huge, their hulls covered in strange armor that shimmered in the light of nearby stars. Some were shaped like blades, others like massive floating fortresses. Inside them, alien crews prepared for battle, confident in their superior numbers. On the bridge of the coalition flagship, Chancellor Vorith stood tall. His eyes narrowed as he looked at the human fleet on the display. They think they can block our path, he said, with a cold smile. His officers waited for his order, certain that the battle would be swift. Back on Orion's blade, Lucas watched as the distance between the fleets grew smaller. His heart pounded, but his voice stayed steady. Weapons ready. Target the lead. Ships when the order comes. The crew nodded, their faces set with determination. The first shots came not from the humans, but from the aliens. A bright lance of energy shot across space, slamming into one of the human cruisers. The cruisers. Shields flared bright blue, then faded. Alarms rang out. Admiral Holt's voice came instantly. Return fire. The blackness of space lit up with weapons. Fire. Human ships launched waves of missiles, their engines glowing as they streaked toward the enemy. Railguns fired long streams of metal projectiles tearing into alien armor. The coalition ships answered with heavy beams and plasma bursts. Explosions bloomed like silent flowers in the void. Lucas gripped the railing as Orion's blade shuddered from a near hit. Sparks rained from a console. "Damage control to Section 3, shouted one of the officers. Lucas kept his eyes on the tactical map. One alien destroyer had broken formation, trying to flank the humans. "Gunners, take it down," he ordered. Moments later, the destroyer exploded into a cloud of fire and debris. Despite the humans' fierce defense, the coalition pushed forward. Their larger ships took hit after hit and kept coming. Admiral Holt's plan had been to hold the line as long as possible, but now she saw the chance to strike. "All ships, advance. Break their center," she commanded. Lucas felt the Orion's blade surge forward. The human fleet moved in a wedge formation, focusing all firepower on the middle of the alien line. Under the heavy assault, coalition ships began to break apart. The wedge punched through, splitting the alien fleet into two. In the chaos, Lucas spotted the alien flagship on the far side of the fight. Its shields flickered as it took damage from several human ships. "Admiral, we have a shot at their command ship," Lucas said over the channel. "Take it," Holt replied without hesitation. "Orion's." Blade turned sharply, bringing all weapons to bear on the flagship. Missile after missile struck, followed by railgun fire. The alien ship's armor glowed red from the heat. Then a massive explosion ripped through its side. On Voreth's bridge, alarms screamed as fire tore through the decks. The Chancellor gripped his chair, refusing to leave. Even as the walls collapsed around him, the destruction of the flagship sent shockwaves through the coalition fleet. Without central command, their formations fell apart. Human ships pressed the attack, driving the enemy back. One by one, alien ships either retreated or were destroyed. After hours of fighting, the stars were filled with wreckage. The human fleet, battered but standing, had held the line. Lucas looked around the bridge at his exhausted crew. "We did it," he said quietly. But inside, he knew this was only one battle. The war was far from over. Admiral Holt's voice came one last time. "All ships recover survivors and prepare for repair operations." This victory is only the beginning, as the Orion's blade moved slowly through the debris field. Lucas stood by the window, watching the broken shapes of alien ships drift into the darkness. The coalition had learned today that Earth would not kneel. And if they came again, humanity would be ready. Asterisk. The battle had ended, but the silence that followed was not peaceful. The human fleet floated among the remains of the destroyed ships. Some burned slowly, their hulls glowing red, while others drifted cold and lifeless. Rescue crews moved quickly, searching for survivors in the wreckage. Commander Lucas Grant stood on the bridge of Orion's blade, watching the damage reports appear one after another on the screen. The crew was exhausted. Many had not slept for more than a day. Engineers worked without rest, sealing breaches and repairing power lines. Medics moved through the corridors carrying stretchers and helping the wounded. Every ship in the fleet had taken hits, some so badly that they would not make it back to Earth without help. Admiral Karen Holt called for a meeting of the fleet's senior officers. Her face appeared on the large screen in the Orion's Blades command room. "We won this fight," she began, her voice steady, "but our enemy will come again. The destruction of their flagship has slowed them, but not stopped them." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We must use this time to repair, regroup, and prepare for the next strike." Lucas listened closely. He knew she was right. The Coalition would not forget this defeat. If anything, it would make them more determined to crush Earth. Around him, the officers discussed supply routes, repair stations, and the movement of reinforcements from the inner planets. Far from the battlefield, in the Coalition's deep space territory, the loss of their flagship had caused chaos. The High Council gathered in a dark chamber, their voices sharp and angry. Some demanded immediate revenge, while others warned that humanity was proving more dangerous than expected. Without Chancellor Vorth, the Coalition lacked a strong leader, and political struggles began to grow. On Earth, the news of the victory spread quickly. Across cities and towns, people gathered in streets, cheering for the brave men and women of the fleet. Flags waved and speeches were made, but beneath the celebration, there was fear. Everyone knew the war was not over. Scientists and engineers worked day and night, building new weapons, faster ships, and stronger shields. Back on the Orion's Blade, Lucas walked through the ship's lower decks. He passed crew members sitting against the walls, eating what little food they had time for. Some laughed quietly, sharing stories from the battle. Others sat in silence, thinking of the friends they had lost. The smell of burnt metal still lingered in the air. He stopped at the medbay. Rows of beds were filled with wounded. A young pilot lay with her arm in a sling, smiling faintly when she saw him. "We showed them, sir," she said. Lucas nodded, not trusting himself to speak. He knew she had lost her entire squadron. In the following days, the fleet moved toward a nearby repair station hidden inside an asteroid field. The location was secret, known only to High Command. As they approached, giant doors opened in the side of a massive asteroid, revealing a base filled with lights and activity. Tugs and repair drones swarmed around the incoming ships, guiding them into docking bays. Lucas met with the station's chief engineer, a tall man with grease on his hands. "We'll get your ship patched up, Commander," the man promised, "but it'll take time." "She's taken a beating." Lucas thanked him, knowing every day spent here was a day closer to the enemy's return. Meanwhile, Admiral Holt sent scouts deep into Coalition space. Their orders were to gather information about enemy movements. If the Coalition was preparing for another attack, Earth needed to know. Some scouts would not return, but the risk had to be taken in the quiet of the station. Lucas often found himself looking at the stars. They seemed peaceful, but he now understood that beyond them lay endless danger. The war had taught him that survival was not just about strength, was about never giving up, even when the odds were impossible. One night, Holt called him directly. "Grant, I need you to lead a new mission," she said. "The enemy is regrouping near the Vega system. If they build a base there, they'll have a direct path to Earth. We need to stop them before that happens." Lucas felt the weight of the order. He agreed without hesitation. Preparations began immediately. Supplies were loaded, weapons checked, and the crew was recalled to their stations. The Orion's Blade was not yet fully repaired, but there was no time to wait. Every day the Coalition built their forces was a day Earth lost ground, as the ship left the safety of the asteroid base. The crew looked ahead into the darkness. They knew danger was waiting, but they also knew they carried with them the hope of millions back home. Lucas stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the distant stars, ready for whatever came next. The Orion's Blade moved quietly through the darkness of space. The crew was tense, knowing that the Vega system was ahead. Scouts had confirmed the enemy was building a forward base there. If the base was completed, the coalition would have a direct route to Earth. Commander Lucas Grant stood on the bridge, watching the stars slide past. Every second brought them closer to danger. Admiral Karen Holt's orders had been clear: destroy the base before it became operational. There would be no reinforcements, no backup fleet. This mission had to be quick and decisive. If they failed, Earth would face an attack it might not survive. The crew worked in silence, checking weapons, scanning for enemy signals, and reviewing escape routes. In the engine room, engineers adjusted power flow to give the ship maximum speed and shield strength. In the hangar, pilots ran final checks on their fighters, loading missiles and calibrating targeting systems. Hours later, the first signs of the enemy appeared on the sensors. A massive energy signature marked the location of the half-built base. Around it, smaller ships patrolled in tight formations. Lucas studied the readings. The base was not yet complete, but it already had heavy defenses. A direct assault would be risky, but there was no other choice. Lucas gave the order to attack. Fighters launched from the hangar, engines flaring bright. They darted ahead of the main ship, weaving through enemy fire. The Orion's blade followed, its cannons opening fire. The first enemy patrol was caught off guard, 2 ships exploding before they could return fire. The battle grew fierce. Laser beams cut across the darkness, and missiles streaked toward their targets. The coalition ships fought hard, but the humans pushed forward with determination. Every crew member knew what was at stake. If they failed here, the war might be lost. Inside the enemy base, alarms blared. Workers rushed to man the weapons. Turrets along the unfinished outer ring began firing, forcing the fighters to break formation. Lucas ordered the Orion's blade to focus its fire on the largest turret, and after several direct hits, it exploded in a burst of flames. Admiral Holt's voice came over the comms, calm but firm. "Grant, you must get inside the base's shield before they power it up completely. Once it's active, you won't be able to breach it." Lucas acknowledged the order and pushed the ship forward at full speed. The Orion's blade slipped through a gap in the base's defenses, dodging debris and enemy fighters. Once inside the shield perimeter, the crew targeted the main power core. The base's structure shook as the first blasts hit. Enemy troops tried to mount a counterattack, but the human fighters held them back. In the control room, Lucas watched as the power core's readings spiked. "All weapons, fire at will," he shouted. The combined firepower tore through the core's protective plating. Seconds later, the entire section erupted in a massive explosion. Flames and debris spread outward, tearing through the rest of the base. The shockwave rocked the Orion's blade, but the shields held. Outside, enemy ships began to scatter. With their base destroyed, they had no reason to stay. Lucas ordered the fighters to return and the fleet to retreat before more reinforcements arrived. The journey back was quiet. The crew was tired, but proud. They had completed the mission and dealt the coalition another heavy blow. From the bridge, Lucas looked at his crew and saw the same thought in their eyes. This was not the end, but it was a turning point. Back on Earth, the news spread fast. People filled the streets once again, celebrating. For the first time in months, there was real hope. The destruction of the Vega base meant Earth had time to rebuild, to train more pilots, and to strengthen its fleets. At the fleet's command headquarters, Admiral Holt met with Lucas in person. She congratulated him, then spoke seriously. "You've given us breathing room," she said, "but the war isn't over. They'll come back, and when they do, we must be ready." Lucas nodded, knowing her words were true. That night, Lucas walked alone along the observation deck of the station. Through the large windows, he saw Earth below, blue and peaceful. It was for this world, for its people, that they fought. The enemy had underestimated humanity again, and they had paid the price. He knew that as long as there were men and women willing to stand and fight, Earth would never fall. Far away, deep in coalition space, the surviving commanders met in secret. The loss of the Vega base had shaken them. Some spoke of ending the war, while others demanded vengeance. But one thing was certain: the humans had proven themselves to be far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. And so, while the galaxy waited in uneasy silence, both sides began preparing for the battles yet to come. Asterisk,